Hello, welcome to Word Mentality, another episode that looks at the origin of words that are tricky to spell in the hope that the story might help you remember the spelling. Today we've got a bit of a Christmas theme, so I'm looking at two words that we often hear around this time of year, myrrh and frankincense. So we all know that three wise men came from the east and brought gifts to baby Jesus, and they were gold, frankincense and myrrh. You might have also heard that back in those days, frankincense and myrrh were as valuable as gold, if not more valuable. And they were valuable because they came from trees. The three wise men came from the east, these trees that only grew in certain parts of the world. And they were both used for incense and perfumes and had particular smells that were appealing. Frankincense had sort of a citrusy smell, whereas myrrh had an earthier, woodier, sort of almost medicinal smell. So let's have a look at the stories and see if it helps to remember the unusual spelling. So let's start with frankincense. If we go back in the history of the word frankincense, well, let's split it up and just look at incense first. So incense and incendiary share a similar history, and incendiary means to burn. Okay, so we've got something that we're burning, and if we had an incendiary device, that's also something that you might burn. But that still doesn't help us to remember that it's a C and not an S at the beginning here, and it doesn't help us to remember that it's an S at the end. So let's keep going back. The word incendiary actually comes from a Latin word candere, which meant to glow, okay, like something that burns, glows, and it was a combination of in and candere. Okay, candere is where we get our word candle, which is something that burns and something that glows. Now, candle gives us that hard C sound. So if we can remember this link between candle and incense, then we'll know that this is a C sound, because here we use it with the hard C sound. Okay, so that's the C at the beginning of incense. If we then look at the beginning of the word frank, that's a bit easier to spell, but just for your interest, frank comes from the old French word that was spelt that way, and what that meant was free or noble, pure, basically, not enslaved. And so frankincense was really good quality incense. That's where the word comes from, frankincense. Okay, so hopefully that will help with the spelling, particularly the tricky C and the S in the second half of that word. Myrrh is a bit trickier in terms of tips, but we'll see what we can do. If we look at myrrh, we have to go back to a Greek word. Let me just change the colour of my pen. This word here, myrrh, and then the Arabic word that means bitter, which is spelt like that. That doesn't help with the Y, and that's just something we're going to have to remember, but it might help with the double R. And another tip with the double R is that we've got lots of words that sort of have an M and then a vowel and then a double R. If we think of words like tomorrow, marry, our Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the Murray River, a mirror. So this is quite common to have the letter M and then a vowel and then a double R. As for the H at the end, well, RRH is also quite common in words that tend to sort of have a medicinal or some sort of health aspect, like diarrhea, for example, that RRH. So if you remember what I said at the beginning about how myrrh had that sort of almost medicinal smell, then that might help you remember that tricky RRH spelling. So they are tricky words, but hopefully you can impress friends and family this holiday season by spelling them correctly.